because I do something called the pelvic wisdom meditation. And in doing that with people, oh gosh, everywhere now, this area of the body is sometimes extremely charged. And there is often, if somebody can access the words, they're like, I don't know what I'm going to find when I go there. I just don't really want to do it. Right. So yeah, I think it's challenging. So you're right. Like it's a beautiful way to step in is to try something in a bite size. And then I would completely agree. It's when we do the long-term consistent work with it and really lean in with somebody that we're comfortable with or a group that we're comfortable with, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Becoming More Me. I'm excited to introduce you today to Dr. Sara Smith. Now, Dr. Smith is the creator of the Core Alignment Method and Pelvic Wisdom Meditation. As an intuitive career and life mentor, she lovingly guides others to connect with their inner wisdom by way of the pelvis. This often forgotten connection assists others to awaken deep wells of inner clarity, creativity, and freedom in their health, relationships, and career. I can only imagine. I'm already starting to think about parallels and things that I do in my work and things that you do in your work. So I'm really excited to have you here and discuss this. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really excited and happy to be here and see where the conversation goes today.
Absolutely. I think it's actually kind of interesting to start out with like how we even got here to recording because I often get asked all of these tips about podcast guesting because I've been on a lot of shows and I coach a lot of people. And you had reached out to me after filling out a form to be on my show. And I gotta tell you, like, I get pitched a lot. And right now, as we're recording, and I told you before we started, my book launches in a few days. So I have hundreds of pitches that are waiting for my attention. And yours is the only one that has gotten through and gotten a recording during this time period. So what I wanted to mention to people, since I get asked this question so much, is that, you not only filled out the form, but then you did things that I always tell other people to do and that I notice when people do for me. And then you followed me on different platforms, you sent me heartfelt, genuine messages, and you connected with me as a human being. And that really goes a long way. So thank you for doing that. And for all of you that are looking to be guests on podcasts, like do what Sara did and make yourself a friend and make yourself known to the host because it definitely gets eyeballs on things a lot better than just expecting a form to get through and be seen. I'll get to those hundreds later, but just not now. So welcome.
No, that I know. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought that up about like how we're connected. And, I've been podcast guest. I don't have my own podcast. I have like a very light YouTube kind of interview series called Going Inward that I sometimes do, but not consistently. And so I've been a podcast guest for probably the last 7 to 8 years. And so, one might think that would be like a strategy, and it is a strategy. For me, it's just what feels the best,
right.
And as I've listened to so many more of your podcasts now that I've learned about you, like, I think that's one of the things that you preach all the time is it feels good. I personally prefer to connect with people and to really get to know them. It feels very natural. You very quickly, I were also very welcoming to me. But I also have gotten over the like, well, I'm just going to reach out. And if they don't respond, no worries.
Exactly.
Like I'll keep going. And so, but yeah, there's another good friend of mine who also has had a long time podcast in the pelvic floor world, Dr. Brianne Grogan. And she still to this day, we've probably been connected for the last 10 years. And she was saying to this day, my subject line on the email to her, just simply reaching out, she was like, it was so funny that I couldn't help but be like, who is this girl? And
do you remember what it was?
No. Probably had something to do with the pelvis, knowing me. Yeah, but like that. So I love that you're bringing that up because it really, you're reminding me, and I think everyone that you work with, that it is important to really bring in that human connection because all of us are moving at an extremely astrological fast rate. And
yes, and we're going so much into the age of AI and everything else, but that can't replace human connection. That's not to
Never.
say that I won't be implementing it in many ways in my business, because multiplying me is great when I can do it in ways that are authentic,
Yeah,
but I still want to be there and be me and show up and, have that human
absolutely.
connection. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. So, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about you, as far as like, hobbies, things you enjoy, your life, your family, that kind of stuff, and where you live.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am in Virginia. I'm actually, this is what I always tout. I'm from the Eastern Shore of Virginia. And so the Eastern Shore of Virginia is houses one of the last pristine barrier island chains in the entire
Mhm.
world. It is a very, very special, sacred place to us. We currently live across the water, across the Chesapeake Bay, right outside of Williamsburg, Virginia, and
Nice.
Gloucester.
Beautiful area.
Yeah, equally similarly beautiful. And so we moved here for my husband's job. I have two beautiful boys, and so they keep me quite busy. The harmonizing of business and mom life is a real thing.
Sure is.
It's a real
Mom of
thing.
four boys here, so I get it.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So I have lots of love to share for you, because that's
Right
incredible.
back at you, Mama.
Yeah. And let's see, we live on 5 acres. I'm coming to you right now from what my clients have dubbed the Zen Den, which is a little cottage. It's my office on the property, but it also is a yoga
Nice.
studio and retreat center.
Beautiful.
And in my spare time, I do a lot of kayaking, a lot of boating, a lot of hiking. Now that we're closer to the mountains, we go there a lot. So
Nice.
yeah,
Very cool. Yeah, I'm just
yeah,
in Maryland, so I've been to your neck of the woods a good bit over the years. It's a
great.
beautiful place to live.
It's so
Absolutely.
special.
And
Yeah.
how did you get into doing what you do business-wise?
That is a very, very long, beautiful story, but I'll try to condense it very quickly. So I started off, my doctorate is a doctorate in physical therapy. So it's a clinical doctorate. And I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a physical therapist. I also knew from a very young age that I was not going to be a physical therapist forever, that it was going to be a jumping off point. And I'm
Okay.
talking about like around the age of 10 and 11, I felt this very strongly and intuitively in my system.
Interesting.
Yeah, fascinating. And so I went the world of physical therapy. My grandmother owned a beautiful, beautiful, like spa-like physical therapy clinic. And she would always tell me, she's like, Sarah, you're just not going to be able to create this. Like insurance companies, it's not the way the world is really kind of going as far as healthcare.
Hmm.
And I love when people tell me that something can't be done, because I'm like, oh, I'll find a way. I'll figure it out. So to be honest, the pelvic
What's your
floor,
sign?
Leo. Yeah, makes sense.
The pelvic floor, sorry.
I know. Yeah. So the pelvic floor piece really kind of came to me. Like I was very interested in hands-on, holistic, more, Eastern medicine wellness sorts of practices. And so I really would seek out, while I was in all of my internships, those sorts of manual based, like off the wall kind of practices that nobody else really cared about. I was like, give them all to me. I want them all. And
Yeah.
so they often really went into pelvic floor physical therapy too. That was not what I wanted to do. It really kind of kept finding its way to me. But what I liked really quickly about it was that not many people at that time were doing it. So being a Leo, I wanted to be the only one. And I
I've done
was.
it and it was very beneficial to me.
It's so good. Yes, it can be really life-changing. So long and the short of it was I started, really kind of shaping everything into pelvic floor physical therapy. Once I did that, though, I was also kind of simultaneously on my own healing exploration and journey, I guess we would say. I've just always kind of been that sort of self-help junkie, but like way more on the spiritual side. When my first son was born, we didn't really know right away what was going on, but he has an extremely ultra rare genetic thing, is what I'll call it. It does not yet have any sort of diagnosis associated with it. He was number 4 in the world. There's only 15 to date. So I really was needing to do some of my own work. And so I kind of, as I was doing pelvic floor therapy, I had also gotten my yoga certification. I was in life coaching. I was just, all the things really just were kind of coming to me. But when I started kind of playing and kind of combining all these things in my clinic with everyone, I started seeing just the most fascinating things. And so that's really what kind of brought me into the work that I do now. It was like when we were safely and appropriately like even just opening up the area of the pelvis, bringing more awareness to it, inviting the breath into that space, like touching and the concept of the lower half of the body is not just ugly and horrible and large and terrible and creates all these issues, because most people are not thinking about their pelvic floor unless something goes wrong, right? And then we're all thinking about the pelvic floor, yet
Right.
it's silent. You kind of suffer in silence. Like it's still very taboo to discuss that. So what was so neat is like as we were just shifting these very minute pieces, because I came from this lens of the yogic philosophy, like really where less is more.
Right.
Some really fascinating things started to take place. And that was that people were coming in and they were communicating more clearly. They were suddenly remembering dreams and desires that they had about their career and their life long ago that had been significantly buried, but they were considering it again. Men, like one man in particular, but men and women would come in and would suddenly say, like, you know, I think I need to communicate a little better in my relationship, or I think I need a divorce, or I think that, like I was able to have this conversation that I haven't been able to have with my partner forever. People were coming in and deciding that they wanted to shift their career, that they wanted to like go for managerial positions, like things that when you met these people, they were not on their radar, like
Right.
at all. And it was fascinating to me because I like things that are unique and new and different.
Yeah.
I'm sure I wasn't the only person discovering that, but it was there. And I couldn't unlearn what I then had witnessed.
Yeah, it was when you were discovering it. So it was
Yeah,
new and fresh, and it was all being seen through this fresh lens from you, and you're
yeah,
probably giving it your own twist too, which is really cool.
exactly.
So obviously, we're going to talk a lot about the lower half of the body, especially the pelvis today. And while it would seem like we've come a long way with, connecting our mind and body and having that awareness, there's still a long way to go for a lot of us. So let's start with, what is pelvic wisdom?
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful question. So, I am not the creator of the word pelvic wisdom, but what it means to me is really being able to tap in to that intuitive source. I'm going to bring in my pelvic model because I just can't help myself.
Mhm.
That really lives within us. This area is where everything in life is birthed, right? Literally as a mother birthing a child, but in our business, creativity, ideas. It's also the safest place to store what we don't know what to do with. Bony structure wise, it's like a bowl. It is the safest place to store things. So pelvic wisdom really is this beautiful ability to go in and to communicate deeply with the self, to listen, to move a little more slowly and intentionally, and receive the wisdom deep from, I call the soul. Some would say God, some, would just call that inner wisdom. Some would say they're guides, but this ability to really connect in with what we are in alignment and here to do with our lives, personally, professionally, communally, all of that. So it's this beautiful wisdom, really, that we have access to. Most of us are going and are taught to go to the heart to access that. And I think that, of course, the heart is the heart has just gotten so much play over the years. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful place. But if we are disconnected from the lower half of the body, then we are not really tuned into the full capacity and function of what I call the sacred heart. We're
Yeah,
kind of, at a lower capacity of what's
absolutely.
possible.
I'm usually looking at things like that through the lens of like our energy portals and things like
Mm.
that, and thinking about like the chakra system and how, much like everything's birthed through, the pelvis, that root chakra is where everything comes into physical manifestation and becomes real in the world.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of parallels there. And I always say to like my clients how, when we're not energetically fortified in those areas and we haven't resolved all those past things and everything else, it's like we have a spaghetti colander instead of like a fortified container structure to like receive things in. So I see a lot of parallels in what you're relating from the actual physical structure of our body into our
Yeah.
energy.
Oh, I love that. I love the spaghetti colander. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yes. And then we become disembodied,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So do you have any favorite practices for kind of getting back into our body, out of our head, all those things
Yeah.
that
Oh, I
myself,
do.
my audience, that's our speak, we're high, kind of high performers, high functioning anxiety, ADHD. It's sometimes a little bit of the challenge to get back into the body.
Right. Someone asked me this question recently, and for me, I really like to honestly assist people in tuning in of specifically what they need for them because um I have found that every one of us has a path of least resistance. And so for some of us, it's something physical. For other ones, it's mental. For other ones, it's emotional, energetic, spiritual. So it kind of helps to like hone in on what that is for that person. But that being said, I'm not going to say, no, I have nothing for you, Teresa. So,
I appreciate that everyone's individual and that there are different ways that
yeah,
other people would be assisted that wouldn't be as beneficial to
yeah,
others.
yeah. So, because like what I'm about to say sometimes just doesn't resonate. And it's like, yeah, that's great, but tried that, done it, doesn't really work for me. So I think the number one thing is really going into that breathing, like learning how to diaphragmatic breathe, but not sometimes it's been taught incorrectly where we're really truly kind of just fluffing out the abdominal wall when really we need to actually be getting the diaphragm, which is at the bottom of the rib cage, and also doing so as a 3D structure. So when you do that, you're really activating that vagus nerve and you're really able to get what's called the pelvic diaphragm working with your physical diaphragm
Yeah.
and the diaphragm of the throat, so to speak, so that they start to commune together. So that would be one. Another one is really just, I learned this, and I've just kind of amended it a little bit from a shaman in Belize, Rosario. And really it's like stomping your feet or taking your hands and really just pushing down into your thighs or bringing your hands tapping on the area around the uterus, if that's available to you, right above the pubic bone where the bladder is. Anything to kind of stimulate, like let's bring our attention lower is, I think, hugely beneficial. And what I love about that is I am a person, and so are so many people that come to work with me, and it's not your audience too. It's like we need things that are fast. Like if it's going to take
Yep.
me 15 minutes, I ain't got the time. I love it. Sometimes I do, but I need things like within moments that I can access in order to get low. So that's
Right.
the
But then
other.
here's the problem I always see with that is like we want it fast, we want it now, we want it yesterday. But the
Yeah.
most beneficial things in my experience are the things where we slow down. Like
Yeah.
that's where like we really get to have the nervous system feel comfortable and safe and everything else, but nobody wants to slow down.
Well, that brings up my next point. It's scary and at times terrifying to parts of those nervous systems. I'm sure that I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but what I have realized in doing this work with people all over the world, because I do something called the pelvic wisdom meditation, and in doing that with people, oh gosh, everywhere now, this area of the body is sometimes extremely charged. And
Mhm.
there is often, if somebody can access the words, they're like, I don't know what I'm going to find when I go there. I
Yeah.
just don't really want to do it. Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's challenging. So you're right. Like it's a beautiful way to step in is to try something in a bite size. And then I would completely agree. It's when we do the long-term consistent work with it and really lean in with somebody that we're comfortable with or a group that we're comfortable with, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and I'm all about like confidence and stuff in my work and the high achieving women and things who, listen to this show. So tell me, what is the connection in your opinion between our pelvis and confidence?
Oh, you're just asking so many of the best questions. So I'm gonna quote a little bit of a study first. So there was a study done not that long ago, but like early, let's say like I'm gonna say it was like 2010 or 13, something like that, that was looking at the tension in the pelvic floor musculature. And it was comparing several things, but the main two were anxiety and perceived sexual threat. And interestingly enough, anxiety created the bigger amount of tension in the pelvic floor, way more so, significantly more so than a perceived sexual threat.
Interesting.
To me, it is extremely interesting. It's like, how? So we are extremely connected, mind, body, whether we feel as if there's a disembodiment and disconnected or there's not. And so when we're talking about women who are really interested in achieving and succeeding and living a purpose-driven life, that often comes with a lot of the old, I guess we'll call it, lens of kind of, strategy and masculine sense. And I've loved some of the podcasts that I've heard of yours, where it's like, we really have to kind of get into that deeper work. So when we're kind of living from the top half of the body, we're kind of using old paradigms that really are not often in flow with what really our deeper purpose is. And so I find personally that it just is absolutely imperative. I had one client, she owned a business in a male dominated field. And on average, she was working about 60 hours a week, sometimes way more. And that was the culture. I mean, that was kind of what was expected. Her family life, of course, was kind of suffering because of that. She had children that were growing up and they were having their issues. She had unresolved pieces of a divorce that she went through, that she was, going through. And then the other thing was that she did not feel at all that it was going to be possible for her to retire at any time in her life. Like that she probably would be, like her family, and it would be in like the 70s or 80s, that maybe she would be able to finally get her hands out of the business. And so as you start peeling back these layers, what's beautiful is you get to see real time what is asking to come up, these creative solutions that are actually right there,
Right.
And when you're guided, when you're in safe space, that's what I really feel with this deeper core, pelvic core work. And again, I'm sure that you
Underneath
agree
the
with this and what you
beliefs,
do.
underneath the
Yeah.
scarcity, underneath all that other stuff, the programming.
Yeah. And you have to have kind of a guide or someone to come with you. Most people are not going to walk into the cave by themselves, not really knowing what they're going to see. So she was able to retire in her early 50s. She sold her business for way, way more than she thought she did. She has absolutely gorgeous relationships with her now, more adult children. She started a second business. Like, these things really make such a difference. Yet when we're living up here, we don't see a lot of creative options and clarity. We're kind of just stuck in the rut. And
Yeah.
so that's what I found.
And until we
With that
find
pelvic
that
system.
space being also time and clarity being,
Yeah.
focus without resistance, then we can really move into that. It's really, really difficult for people when they're working those 60-hour weeks, trying to raise their kids, trying to navigate all those things they said that she was managing, to like kind of like rise above it all and see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
That's what I think people struggle with
Yeah.
the most, is getting
You're
that,
just
that
trying to,
perspective, that reframe.
you're trying to put out fires. Yeah.
Yeah. But they'll do that for the rest of their lives if they don't make the space and the time for it and slow down to see the things that you're able to show them.
Right. Right. I have a question for you, and feel free to, if this isn't appropriate, we'll just move on to the next question.
Yeah, please
But,
do.
you mentioned that you had done pelvic floor therapy for yourself. Like, how, now that you look back, do you see, or like, was there anything that kind of helped going through that process with you in your career or life?
That's a great question. I haven't really looked at it through that lens
Yeah.
before, but it was a very transformative time in my life. So it definitely could have been connected. It was, after my my last child was born, when I was like,
Mhm.
kind of want to get this pelvic floor strong again and not feel like it's so weak and everything else. And yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, the amount of things that have improved in my life since then, I can't say
Mm,
it's all because I went to pelvic floor therapy, but
sure.
it was definitely one component of many that helped me with my own success and up leveling and awareness and consciousness of my body and mind and the way that they're connected. You know.
Yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
excellent shape when I went through it too. So it was kind of
Wow.
surprising to me as I went through it. Probably the best shape of my life. I was 40 and I, had bounced back after the kids and I was like super strong, super lean. And yeah, I was surprised how weak my pelvic floor was.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, it really is. And I mean, interesting, like female Olympic athletes have one of the highest rates of incontinence of any group of females
Interesting.
in the world. It's fascinating. And I think again that there's so little emphasis on the internal, yet we all know in this world, if you focus on the internal, the external then of course blooms.
Yep.
So I think that analogy is really important. And I venture to say too that at least I've seen this with other people. I cannot speak for you, but when the pelvic floor is, let's say, just not functioning at its optimal, like maybe it's not necessarily weak, maybe it's just not like engaging at the right time or relaxing, like there's just a timing issue. If we think about that symbolically, that timing issue then does become so important, right? As a mom, as a friend, as a business owner. And so does this concept of, if we feel that the musculature is weak, then that also means that we're not feeling supported, that we are not able really to deeply support ourselves. And it's that symbolism, that sometimes the body can show us. I had one person who called me like the Lorax of the pelvis, and it just makes me giggle, but but I love it because it's like, yes, our body is often communicating with us these beautiful symbolic messages.
So you
Yeah.
speak for the Lorax, or you
I
speak for the
do.
pelvis.
I speak for the pelvis. I am here
Yes.
to speak on behalf
Somebody
of the
needs to do
pelvis.
it. I mean, I think the more that, I mean, I'm always very comfortable talking about whatever, but you can tell it's not the most comfortable topic for a lot of people. And there's
No.
a lot of like, nobody ever really kind of like told them anything about that or whatever. I always appreciate it when I'm doing workouts, if it's a guided workout or a video or whatever, and the instructor is actually sharing like how to engage different parts of the body other than
Right.
just like, we're just going to do a crunch or we're going to do this or like lift your hips up or whatever, like actually like explaining the tilts and the ways that you can get a little extra out of it, squeeze a little Kegel in there or whatever else. Like,
Yes.
great. Like, I work all the stuff at once. I'm all about
Right.
that.
Yeah, we really do need to know how. And the cool thing is, with YouTube kind of blowing up and social media, there are so many more resources now than ever for that physical piece. That's really why I created the core alignment method, was that, well, part of it was business sense wise. Like the moment I say yoga or I say pelvic floor physical therapist, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what you do. And it's like, actually, no, I do this very deeply transformative work, in your business and in yourself, like, and your relationships. So the first step, which now I think there's so many more resources than ever on the internet, is really connect that C of the core alignment method, which is connecting to your physical core. Like when we even just begin to, even as we're talking, kind of just notice, oh, wow, I do have a pelvis. It's down there, like
Mhm.
I have a pubic bone, and that pubic bone is in the front. I have a tailbone, the coccyx, it's in the back. I can actually feel a little bit where I'm sitting. Those are my sit bones. Kind of be aware of that and be aware of what it's like to squeeze and release, what it feels like when the breath comes into the area. All of these pieces connect into that C, physical core. But then from there, it starts opening up. And so then you go into the O, which is like, once you start getting some movement and some flow and some connection in the pelvis and in even just the lower half of the body, then you can really open, I have found, and notice the blocks, the old contracts, like the outdated stuff that's been in there, that you're actually ready now to release. Because sometimes we want to be ready, yet we're not really quite, all the parts of us are not there yet to be ready to release it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do the rest of the parts of that stand for? The
So
core.
then, yeah, then there's R, which is reconnecting to that pelvic inner wisdom. So once we kind of and open ourselves and just become aware, then we have enough space, like energetic space in our system, to be able to sit quietly and really listen to those messages. And so that could be, let's say I've set an intention, like what I'm feeling scattered, what should I be doing in my business today? You really can after you kind of open, you can go into that to reconnect to that pelvic wisdom. And then the final thing, which is the most vital and most challenging at times part, is E, which is emerging and actually taking action. Because often the inner wisdom that we receive, especially lower in the body, especially like when it's just really, really connected, that often does not follow logic. And so it takes a vast amount of courage or creativity or just patience, right, to stay with it and actually emerge and take action upon it. So, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that acronym. That's pretty awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
how do people work with you? Is it one-on-one? Is it a group? How do you do your programs?
I do one-on-one work. I keep a decently small caseload for that, but I have a one-on-one work called the Awaken Your Core VIP mentorship. I do distance energy healing within that, and then also sessions that really are a huge deep dive. And then I also have the Living from the Core Sacred Sisterhood, and that's a year-long membership where we practice. So by season, we go through the core alignment method, and we set intentions by the moon cycle. And we really kind of connect in very intentionally to learn how to do that E step, that emerging and taking action, being our authentic selves. Once you uncover them, being able really to be a part of it. Yeah.
Love that. That's awesome. So, what does connection, or in this case, probably for most people, reconnection to their pelvis mean to you and to them? Like, what's the impact on the world here when we could all like reconnect to our pelvis?
I believe that the pelvis has just been so shamed. It has been historically the part of the body that it holds all of those seeds of authentic power and connection and creativity. And it has been completely snubbed out of society from a religious standpoint for a very, very long time. I think we're seeing a reemergence of that. But so for me, this is a very big, special and important mission that even when I try to say, okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore, I just can't put it down, because I feel like on an individual level, it really allows you to ground into your courage and your ability to show up exactly who you are, because you're really, if you want to use like the chakra system, it's like we really are completely in alignment now with all of the aspects of us. Is it the one thing that everybody needs to do? No. I mean, there's so many beautiful things, right? Like so much of what I've learned from you, is fabulous. So this is not just to say, this is the one thing. I do believe this is a lifestyle, that goes in. So on an individual level, I think it'd be really important. But to me, it also, this is a bigger historical piece that we are being called as an entire human race, I do believe, to reconnect back in, to access these wells of ability to sit in the same space as somebody else that we do not necessarily agree with and have conversations that allow all of us to belong. So to me, I just really feel like when I've seen, like I've started doing this work in people's businesses and corporate, when you see them be in space together and learn how to use these techniques, it changes the entire dynamic of what they're able to create. And I am obsessed. I want to see more. Like, I don't really know. Do you know what I mean? Like some of this stuff for me is theory, right? But all that I know is when I've run the experiments, I want to see more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is all really fascinating.
Yeah.
Man, what do you wish everybody knew about their pelvis? Or what's something that you wish more people were in the know about?
I wish more people knew at this point that it really living from this place can be a lifestyle, and that it's so the physicality of it that I think is becoming so much more commonplace now. Like we know more so now that there are pelvic floor physical therapists and physiotherapists. We know, that we can go on YouTube or we can go on social and reels and look at, how to do Kegels, how to do, appropriate exercises, like you said. I think we have work to be done there, but still that's there. What I really want more people to see is that this part of the body is communicating with us. It loves us. It is here for us to thrive and to really bloom if we only go deeper into it. And I think that that is completely possible, even if there's been a lot of trauma in the area. There's workarounds there, because this part of the body just wants our love and attention.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Where can people learn more about you and your programs or connect with you?
Absolutely. So, of course, like many people, I'm on all the socials, mostly Instagram and Facebook, a little bit of LinkedIn. And you can also go to my website, www.drsarasmith.com. It's DRSARA without an H, Smith.com. And I love to connect with people. I mean, this stuff I can talk about this all day long. I'm also an Insight Timer, and I do several lives, usually a month, that are donation based and have several tons and tons of meditations, and a course that's on Insight Timer as well. So that's a great place to connect with me too.
Awesome. How have you liked your experience on Insight Timer? I keep thinking I should get on there.
I love it. What I will say is that it does take time. And, so it is something kind of probably like everything, you need to put in the effort for it to be there. But I just have found it has really been a fabulous way to kind of amplify the message. It just makes me feel really good. I thoroughly enjoy it. And I have the pelvic wisdom meditation for free that you can try on my website. If you scroll down on the main homepage, it's there, and it says like a core confidence workbook. So that's also the meditation. But what I love is being able really to be in real time with people all around the world and create such a sacred space while practicing this pelvic wisdom meditation technique. It's fabulous.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out. And I encourage all of you to go do the same and check out Dr. Smith wherever you want to, wherever you hang out and feels natural and resonates with you. And thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing all of this wisdom and really cool perspectives on the pelvis with us.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It's been wonderful.
All right. And thank you all for listening. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.